Act 1. Hook. I was 3 steps from the diner door, rain soaking my jacket shoes squelching, thinking about how many hours I had left on the clock, when I saw her white hair matted to her head, a wheelchair stuck in a puddle, eyes wide and small under the streetlight, and something in me stopped dead. I left my tip jar on the counter, shoved the door back open, and in less than a minute I had her inside a towel around her shoulders, a bowl of soup steaming between us. And that small, ordinary choice sent my life spinning into places I never imagined. You ever have one stupidly simple moment change everything? Yeah, that happened to me. My name is Danny Morales, and for 3 years my life fit into a 10-stool diner booth and a neon sign missing 2 letters, the kind of place where the coffee is refilled more than customers come in. I'm a single mom. Ellie is 3. She asks the funniest things like why the moon isn't blue, and I promise her an answer and then figure it out later. I pick up shifts, I pick up crumbs, I pick up the pieces of days that break. That night I picked up a woman named Esther, silk sweater, soaked pearls dulled by rain, who told me her son was supposed to come get her after the clinic. He didn't show. I pushed her wheelchair over a cracked patch of sidewalk, her hands trembling like they were trying to remember something, and I kept thinking about the calls that never got returned in my life. Landlords, old boyfriends, the number labeled family that rings and goes to voicemail again and again. Esther whispered, "He said he'd be here," like a prayer that had already been forgotten. I made tea, ladled chicken soup like it was sacrament, and when she ate her shoulders untucked a little like someone had unknotted her from the rain. Next morning, the diner door swings open and someone who looks like he was born wearing a suit walks in. Not a drip of rain on him. Hair silvered, at the temple shoes so clean you could polish your conscience on them. He introduces himself like he's reading from a card. "I'm Nathaniel Reed. I believe you helped my mother last night." I answered the way I answer most people, blunt, tired, protective. "She's fine." He says, "Thank you." Then he pauses and he hands me this little white card, not cash, not charity, a job offer. Senior consultant Reed Holdings salary that made my jaw ache. "I need someone who sees people the way you did last night," he says. At first I thought it was a prank. I mean, who hires a diner waitress to come into finance? But then he said something I hadn't expected. "You'll also help make sure my mother isn't forgotten again." And that was the sting. That sentence easily could have been the thing that made me walk out, slam the door, go back to my life of pennies and overtime. Instead, I said yes because there was a child in an apartment across town who needs shoes because the rent is overdue, because sometimes you gamble on dignity. Act 2. The Push and the Clash. Walking into Reed Holdings on my first day felt like stepping into someone else's dream and finding out it was built with other people's blueprints. The lobby was marble, voices were clipped, and everyone moved with a patience I didn't know existed in bodies that never washed dishes for 12 hours. They called me Miss Morales, like I should be honored. I felt nervous, sure, but mostly I felt sharp, like a person who has had to learn everything from scratch, who reads faces for tips and hears silence as a threat. My first assignment was brutal a restructuring plan for a Midwestern manufacturer that would cut 40% of their staff. Pages of charts, bullet points, a spreadsheet that ate up people and spit out percentages. The CFO, Lawrence Kent, looked like he'd been practicing fury for 20 years, MBA on his tongue contempt in his posture. He presented the numbers with the same love people use to discuss weather. "It's efficient," he said. "It increases shareholder value. No mention of family dinners, of apprenticeships, of hands that know the hum of a machine." They expected me to nod. Instead, I stood up palms steady and said what I had seen in 10 years of tipping and listening. Numbers miss people, and when you cut people you lose knowledge you can't buy back. That room deliberately underestimates anyone without an Ivy degree, and I could feel them lower their eyebrows like doors closing. Lawrence laughed at me. That laugh that thinks schooling equals wisdom. "Miss Morales, with all due respect, what's your experience?" He asked like a blade. I told him. Single mother, $3 tips, nights of balancing bills, nights of reading human faces to find a way to feed my kid. Experience isn't a spreadsheet, I said, and he hated me for it. But then something happened I didn't expect. Nathaniel Reed watched me. He didn't look like he was merely ticking boxes. He was measuring something else. The way I didn't sell my ethics for money, the way I refused his first envelope of cash like it would stain me. He put me on the Orion Project, told me to find an alternative that kept people, and then he warned me, "They will try to tear you apart." He wasn't gentle. He was honest. He told me the politics are brutal here, that a lot of them don't want you because you make them explain themselves. I spent nights bent over files, cross-referencing layoff numbers with town economies, calling former employees whose names came up in filings and learning what the jobs really meant. That the line workers were the town's bank tellers, school bus drivers, spouses, kids who help pay rent. I was learning to translate grief into business terms. I came back with a plan. Voluntary retirements, management consolidation, investment in technology and retraining that saved money over time without gutting a town. In a conference room full of men who thought the loudest voice won, I laid it out. Lawrence slammed his palm on the table like authority. Marcus Holt, Senior VP of Strategy who had eyes for my job, sneered and called it sentimental. My heart thudded, and I thought, this is where you prove you're not just a sentimental waitress, and so I pushed harder. They couldn't argue the numbers without sounding like monsters, and monsters in suits are a particular breed. Some board members nodded in that slow way that means they hear some scribbled notes like they were filling in a form. Nathaniel sat back, his face unreadable, then nodded once and told Lawrence to prepare a revised proposal. For a beat, I thought I'd won something real. For a breath, I believed in the story where effort matters. Then the leak happened. Classified bid documents, gone. The evidence pointed to my account, my home IP, the precise time I wasn't at the office. The building smelled like betrayal. For the first time since I walked into that lobby, I felt small the way I used to in schoolyards, exposed, called out, fingered as the easy scapegoat. Marcus's smile became weaponized. Whispers followed me through elevators. The board wanted quick answers. Nathaniel wanted proof. I had 72 hours, a blocked email account, and a toddler who would not understand why her mother might be fired. I felt every old insecurity climb back up like water in a cellar. This is the core of the story. When you're the outsider, the system bends you unless you bend back. I didn't have funds to hire lawyers, but I had allies. Jake, an IT guy who smelled of debugging and empathy, and Esther, who turned out to be more than a frail figure at the diner, an ex-forensic accountant with a spine of steel. We dug through logs, traced VPNs through 3 servers, found a remote monitoring tool installed on my work laptop during the one Friday I had left it unattended to rush to the clinic with Ellie, and then we found the money trail. Shell companies, Cayman accounts, and a pattern of emails between Marcus and a competitor. When we walked into the boardroom with evidence, timestamps, decrypted emails, transaction records, the room that had once murmured became silent in the kind of way that makes you step inward and hold your breath. Marcus tried to bluster to call it fabrication, but the paper is a terrible liar. He was let out under security, not because I wanted vengeance, but because truth demanded it. The board apologized in their careful official way. They offered me a promotion, something real that let me bring a people's voice into strategy. They called it Vice President of Human Capital Strategy. I accepted, not for the title, but because I wanted to make sure no one else would be an easy scapegoat. Act 3. Resolution and Open Question. 4 years later, the skyline looks different from my office window, and so do I. Ellie has a room with light, not a couch to curl on. We go to a school where teachers ask her what she thinks about the moon, and she answers with the calm certainty of somebody who grew up with stories, not scarcity. I still make soup for Esther. We laugh about the night she showed up like some dramatic character in a noir film, and she tells me stories about her husband and the way the city smelled in summer. Nathaniel and I have argued and agreed, and I keep one small card in my wallet, the reminder that one kindness can cascade outward. But this ending isn't tidy, and I'm not trying to sell a fairy tale. Power doesn't disappear because someone calls it out. It mutates. There are still Larrys and Marcuses in corners I can't see, and the choice to stand up, to collect evidence, to risk humiliation, isn't available to everyone. Privilege still protects the practiced predator, and empathy still gets priced as naive until it proves profitable. I got lucky in ways I can't explain. And hardworking people in other towns still lose jobs because systems favor speed and profit. So here's where I want you to jump in. Tell me, was I right to take the job? Did I compromise by saying yes to Nathaniel's terms, or did I do the right thing by stepping into a place where I could change things from within? Is reform more effective from inside an institution, or does real change only come from outside? Rocking the boat. And if you've ever been the person everyone assumed would fail, what did you do? Tell me the time you were underestimated and then surprised them all. If this story moved you, if it ticked you off or made you hopeful, leave a comment right now. Argue with me. Tell me where I'm soft. Tell me where I'm brave. Or tell me about a morning when a single choice changed your life. Hit like if you believe kindness matters, subscribe. If you want more real stories about ordinary people doing something that scares them, and share this with someone you think needs to remember, sometimes the smallest act, a bowl of soup, a phone number tucked into a cardigan, can be the hinge the world swings on. What would you have done in that diner doorway